Give the show a like and a share anywhere you guys are watching. Looking forward to connecting with you guys through the I Love CVille network here very shortly. The University of Virginia has issued a new report with how it will work alongside local businesses in the Charlottesville and Central Virginia area. This report was just released. It was done in conjunction with the Local Economy Working Group, which is a group of leaders in the local business community, builders and service providers, restaurant owners, and essentially the thesis was how can the University of Virginia strengthen its relationship or do more for local business, in particular minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. We'll talk about this report and we'll ask you this question. Here's the question we're going to ask you. Should the University of Virginia do more with working with small businesses in Charlottesville and Central Virginia besides what it is already doing? That topic on today's show. Bill McChesney, hello and welcome to the program. Mr. McIntyre, the mayor of McIntyre, Bill McChesney. Scott Aaronworth, the king of Virginia Beach, welcome to the program. Love when you guys watch the show. Love when you guys participate and chime in and help shape the show. We value your opinions. Give the show a like and a share. Alex Erpy will join us today. We will also encourage everyone to vote on November 8th. That's a week from today. It's Election Day. We have Judah Wickhauer's mic on and his microphone in front of him as we ask him to offer the very clear last name of tomorrow's guest, Mr. Bill
Mooncachi.
Mooncachi. Very well done. For a second time around, Mr. Bill Mooncachi, a 12-year public school teacher who is now in the private sector, will join us on the I Love CVille show tomorrow. Carol Thorpe says you should correct the spelling of Alex's last name in the headlines, the PTI headlines. Thank you, Carol Thorpe. She says she always has your back, Judah Wickhauer, and appreciates your perspective on the show. Carol Thorpe, thank you for noticing that. We're very grateful. Carol Thorpe is the queen of Jack Jewett. Carol Thorpe, we love when you watch the show. Spread the gospel, share the love, tell folks about the I Love CVille show and what we have to offer. The Daily Progress released an article yesterday, late last night, it was in today's paper, discussing the downtown mall killer and how the Charlottesville Police Department worked in conjunction with the U.S. Marshal Service to track this killer into Tennessee. One of the elements of the article that I'm going to highlight that had me concerned was the fact that the killer in 2008 was convicted of a count of gang recruitment. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and it appears that there are certainly gang ties to this murder. We'll rock and roll, Judah, when you are ready. A lot we're going to cover on today's program. Give the show a like and a share. Carol, Scott, Bill, join us in the discussion. Help us shape the show. Judah, things are looking good on our end. We can rock when you're ready. Guys, good Tuesday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you kindly for joining us. An absolute pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille network. Our audience is Charlottesville-wide, Central Virginia-wide, Commonwealth-wide, country-wide, and worldwide on the I Love CVille network. Today's show is live across every social media platform known to mankind. We talk topics that matter to us in long-form fashion. Philip Dow and Pam Dent, welcome to the program. We'll talk the University of Virginia in a recently released report that outlines strategies for the University of Virginia to boost opportunities for local and minority-owned business. This will be the lead of today's show. I'm going to ask you, the viewer and listener, this question. Besides what the University of Virginia is doing right now, which, let's cut to the chase, UVA is the engine that runs Central Virginia. Without UVA in Charlottesville, this area, in a lot of ways, would be maybe Martinsville or Danville, Virginia, okay? We're fortunate to have the university here. It insulates us from macro recessionary trends, undoubtedly drives the job market, certainly is making the area more expensive to live, but it protects and reinforces Charlottesville and Central Virginia from recessionary nuance trends, from difficulties that we're seeing elsewhere in the country. So I'm going to ask you this question. Should UVA be doing more than it's doing right now? We'll take a deep dive on the report that was released late yesterday. We'll highlight the stakeholders in the report, and we'll outline the three phases that UVA will pursue to further support small businesses in the area, locally owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, in Central Virginia. Also on today's show, I'm going to ask you this question. Is the UVA football team drowning in apathy with its fan base? Straightforward question. Alex Erpy will join us on the program in about 20 minutes or so. Tomorrow, Mr. Bill Mooncachi will join us on the show, a 12-year veteran of public schools, Albemarle County and Fluvanna County, his second rodeo on the I Love CVille show tomorrow at 12:30. I will also highlight an element of the Daily Progress story that was released last night online and was published today in the print edition of the Daily Progress. This a follow-up on the murder outside a downtown mall restaurant and bar. The culprit, the murderer, was arrested in Tennessee in a joint venture with the Charlottesville Police Department and the U.S. Marshals Service. Hall Spencer did a fantastic job of covering this story from start to finish. He highlighted eyewitness accounts in the story, and he also wrote a paragraph in the story released last night about the murderer. The most concerning aspect for me was this paragraph. The information of Washington's arrest came in a release, and authorities declined to offer additional information about Washington. However, Albemarle County Circuit Court records indicate that a man by that name has prior convictions, including a count of gang recruitment in 2008. So the murderer, 14 years ago, was convicted of recruiting people into gangs by the Albemarle County Circuit Court. The reason I relay this to you is because I think there is more to this murder than just two men with beef and friction? Am I worried that more of this type of violence will happen in downtown Charlottesville? No, I am not. Am I worried that this violence is gang related? Yes, I am. That topic coming up on the show. First, we'll welcome Judah Wickower on a two-shot. When you have an opportunity, let's get this camera set up if we could. That way we can look at each other and have a eyeball-to-eyeball discussion. Like we always do. I thought yesterday's discussion was excellent, Judah. I would love to chatter the UVA report from yesterday. It was released yesterday. That should be the topic of most legacy or traditional media news cycles this evening and into tomorrow. The report is on news.virginia.edu, the official media arm of the university. It's headlined, UVA outlines strategies to boost opportunities for local minority-owned businesses. The University of Virginia, in conjunction with a working group, and the working group was the Local Economy Working Group.
LUG.
What's that?
LUG.
Local Economy Working Group. LUG?
LUG.
L-E-W-G, the
LUG.
acronym. LUG. I like it. Okay, LUG. The members of LUG, I like LUG. I like that creativity there. Judah's in the branding business. I appreciate LUG. The members of LUG were Stephen Davis, who's been on the I Love Seville network multiple times.
Yeah, from CIC.
Yep, exactly right. The president of the Community Investment Collaborative. He was the co-chair. Few people in our community know small businesses as well as Stephen Davis, the president of the Community Investment Collaborative.
Yeah.
That literally is what he does for a living, supporting and working alongside small businesses.
Yeah.
The other co-chair was Destiny Wright, the owner of Luxie Hair Services. David Durant, the vice president of Austrian Group. Kristen Floyd, the supplier of UVA, she's in supplier diversity, was part of the working group. So was Jen Glassman, the director of procurement and supplier diversity services. Quentin Harrell, the founder and CEO of Heritage United Builders, was part of the working group. Jonathan Homan, the director of procurement at UVA Medical Center, was part of the working group. Mark Stannis, the director of capital construction and renovations at UVA, was part of the group. Nikisha White, the owner of Royalty Eats, was part of the working group, as was Lori Strother, a SWAM contractor administrator at the University of Virginia. So this working group, for more than a year, brainstormed, collaborated, they whiteboarded, they chatted, they conversated, they planned. And for more than a year, they provided a report to the heavy hitters at the University of Virginia. The heavy hitters at the University of Virginia include President Jim Ryan, Chief Operating Officer Jennifer J.J. Wagner Davis, Vice President for Finance Melody Bianchetto, Associate Vice President for Financial Operations Augie Morelli. And after reading the working group's report, Ryan and Wagner Davis and Bianchetto and Murielli created 3 phases. And these phases were essentially how the University of Virginia is going to further support small business in the area, locally owned business, woman-owned business, and minority-owned business. Mm-hmm. That's the outline. Before we take a deep dive on the show, I want to ask you, the viewers and listeners, and you, Judah Wickower, and I will also give my answer. Should the University of Virginia provide more support to the local economic ecosystem than it already is doing, which, let's cut to the chase, currently it is the local economic ecosystem, the engine that drives it.
Okay, but that's not really saying much about how it supports it.
It's the primary player. I'll pass it on to you. Your thoughts on the report, your thoughts on whether the University of Virginia should be doing even more to support small businesses, locally owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, woman-owned businesses. Show us yours, Judah B. Wickower.
Well, aside from existing, I certainly think it's a good idea to help support the local economy, the local businesses, minority-owned, women-owned, and businesses just trying to make it here in Charlottesville. I don't know what they're actively doing at this point to help anybody besides exist, apparently.
Well, I'll jump in, and I don't mean to interrupt. The University of Virginia certainly, through its procurement services, hires a number of businesses in the region to provide services to the university. A good example of this is Ashley and Mike Abrams, the previous owners of Moe's Original Barbecue on Ivy Road. Currently, Moe's Original Barbecue on Ivy Road is owned by Derek Bond. We helped broker that transaction. We found Derek Bond, the buyer, introduced him to the sellers, and he bought the business. Moe's Original Barbecue, one of their top revenue generators, was the catering services they provided departments within the University of Virginia.
It's good to know.
There's number of examples where UVA is utilizing the services of businesses in the area to help the university run. So I do want to highlight it's doing more than just existing, because It is working alongside currently small businesses. Catering is a good example. Keep going. I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. The reason I said existing is because that's the way you made it sound. I didn't have any specific examples of how they were helping local businesses. I certainly appreciate the fact they do use them. I mean, it's not entirely surprising. I mean, it doesn't make sense to bring in a large company from outside the state. So I certainly think it's a good thing for them to be, furthering their plans to support local businesses. And with the people you mentioned, especially like Stephen Davis, I'm sure they're on track to help a lot of these minority-owned and women-owned businesses. I think. I don't know how they plan to do it. I'm sure they've got some good advice from the people involved. I would like to see them. Do more than just hire someone for hire someone for a party, or use a local company's services once and then say, hey, we're done. We helped some people, and I'm sure they will.
Neil Williamson writes this comment in the feed. This is what I was thinking. This is why I wanted to bring this up on the show. The president of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson, I find Neil Williamson to be a thought leader. And when I am around him, I'm often challenged in my thought. And those are the type of people I like to be around. I want to be around folks that I find provocative in thought. He leaves this comment: should local business be favored over an equal, less expensive, non-local option? University of Virginia, should they be favoring a local business over an equal, less expensive, non-local option? Fantastic question. And I'll follow that up. If the University of Virginia chooses to pursue a partnership with a locally owned business that is more expensive than a non-locally owned business that is less expensive, it shells out more money out of pocket. Eventually, that additional money out of pocket that's shelled out will trickle down somewhere, likely from an admissions cost overhead increase. Every dollar is accounted for. Kevin Yancey makes another good point here. Other than manufacturing and catering, what would UVA procure from local business in the area? It's a great question. The University of Virginia has a partnership, subcontractor partnership, with a construction and remodeling company from the Shenandoah Valley. Much of the rehabilitation, reconstruction work done on grounds was done through this company in the Shenandoah Valley, so much so that this company chose for an extended period of time to rent the Kim's Market grocery store, the former IGA on Cherry Avenue, as its second headquarters in Charlottesville, as opposed to driving its heavy equipment machinery from grounds across the mountain to the valley, incurring tremendous overhead wear and tear and fuel costs. So manufacturing, construction, catering, examples of what the University of Virginia is procuring from the Central Virginia Shenandoah Valley local market. Let's get to Neil's point. Should UVA prioritize, favor a strategic partnership with a locally owned business that is more expensive than a business that is not local, that is less expensive? That's a great talk show talking point. Bravo, Neil Williamson.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's something that we all struggle with, especially in today's economy with inflation rising, looming recession, if you really believe that it's not here already. And we all want to support local businesses, but at some point, some of us, are looking at our finances and saying, well, what do I do? Do I spend, do I spend an extra $1, an extra $5, an extra $10 here on local businesses, or do I go online and order something from Amazon?
There's the conundrum.
It's not an easy question to answer for everyone.
I'll take it
as UVA. I don't think they're checking their wallets and their bank accounts and saying, well, let's just order from Amazon. Still a good question.
They're certainly not hurting. The heaviest of heavy hitters, the deepest of deepest pockets, the University of Virginia in this area. I'll follow that up with this question. If the University of Virginia chooses to prioritize the support of locally owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and women-owned businesses, and it is stating that it's going to. In fact, Jim Ryan and his cabinet have outlined 3 phases that it will roll out. A supply analysis is phase 1, an opportunity analysis is phase 2, and phase 3 is strategy development, implementation, monitoring, and an evaluation phase. Should it start right under its nose on the University of Virginia corner? If the University of Virginia is proudly and boldly pounding its chest, as it metaphorically is doing now, claiming it will support small business, woman-owned business, minority-owned business, how could it allow the University of Virginia corner, one of the most critical shopping, dining, retail, and entertainment districts in a 10.2 square mile city, to gentrify so quickly into a big box brand mecca?
But how would they stop it? Would they have to subsidize
That's an option.
local businesses? And when does that become a problem? When the owners of the property see that all these companies are being subsidized and just decide we can make more money from UVA. UVA will keep helping the small businesses.
That's a great question. You see the many layers to this onion, my friends. You see why it's a great talk show topic. If the University of Virginia chooses to subsidize rents on the UVA corner, what is the closest small business dining, shopping, entertainment ecosystem for the University of Virginia? It's the corner. If they wanted a proof of performance, the pop would transpire literally the place that is 10 feet away from grounds. All you have to do is cross the street.
Yeah.
You cross the street and you go from grounds to the corner. Should the university take the UVA corner as a proof of performance to legitimately say it is in fact committed to small business support, locally owned business support, woman-owned business support, minority-owned business support? Take it a step further.
I think the only way that it would make any sense, and it still might not make sense to most people, but the only real way to create that environment you're talking about with local businesses on the corner would, I think, for UVA to buy all the property on the corner and then set low rents and choose local businesses.
Should UVA do that?
I don't think there's
Something I was thinking.
I don't think there's any other way they could do it by subsidizing the businesses.
Should UVA do that? Follow-up question. Would Hunter Craig? Would Tip Top Terry?
Would they sell?
Would the RE Lee companies? Would L Squared? And I'm going to leave it at L Squared. I enjoyed seeing you at Vivace, L Squared, on Thursday evening. We'll leave you at L Squared. Should L Squared, the RE Lee companies, Hunter Craig, and Tip Top Terry sell their positions? Would they sell their positions? Tip Top Terry and Hunter Craig, last I checked, weren't hurting for dinero. Neither was RE Lee companies. L Squared looks like she's doing all right. I think the more realistic scenario would be perhaps rent subsidies. The follow-up question to rent subsidies on the UVA corner would be,
How do they control the price?
how would landlords respond to rent subsidies? They jack up the rent.
Free money.
This is the invisible hand of capitalism at work right here. How can the University of Virginia truly commit to small business support, minority-owned business support, woman-owned business support, if it allows the shopping, dining, and entertainment district that is 10 feet from grounds to manifest, gentrify, evolve into a big box brand mecca? That right there is a cocktail conversation starter. From my standpoint, if the UVA corner, 10 feet from grounds, continues to evolve into a playground for Raising Cane's, a playground for Chipotle, a former playground for Sheetz, a playground for Starbucks, Qdoba. If it continues to evolve into the big box brand, I need a B word that's synonymous with epicenter or mecca or playground. Anyone? I'm a huge fan of alliteration, if you guys haven't noticed on this talk show.
Base.
Base. Thank you. Very nice. If the University of Virginia continues to allow the UVA corner to evolve into a big box brand base, how can it truly say it's championing and supporting small business, minority-owned business, woman-owned business?
It's a good question, but they're not in charge of saving the corner.
Are they not?
It might be good optics.
Are they not?
No, they're not.
The University of Virginia just purchased Ivy Square Shopping Center. the shopping center where Foods of All Nations is, and a $20+ million deal. $20+ million for the UVA Foundation is what? Drop in the bucket?
Yeah.
They got billions in their endowment.
Yep.
The University of Virginia is buying land north of town near Dirty Nelly's. They're utilizing that land to create affordable housing. Right? Can they not buy the UVA corner? Can they not subsidize the UVA corner? They just bought an entire shopping center in Ivy Road.
I'm not saying, I've already said that that would be the way to do it. But whether they would or not, yes, they certainly can. They certainly have the money, but that doesn't mean it's their job. And as to whether or not they will, I mean, we've got a lot of viewers giving us some pretty interesting comments here.
Why don't we get to some of them? Why don't you get to Kevin? I'll get to Kevin Yancey's comment. Kevin Yancey has said this: pay facilities and maintenance staff better wages, and it will be spent locally in the community. That's a way you can support small businesses in the area. University of Virginia is the #1 employer. Pay their staff better wages, and when they pay them better wages, that additional revenue, salary, hourly wage, will be spent locally in the community to support small businesses. That's a good take. Lisa Costello on a completely different Facebook page, the show airs on 15 Facebook pages, says, yes, UVA provides many jobs for the community. What percentage of those jobs are for people who work at a livable wage for this city? What percentage of UVA workers are being subsidized by taxpayers via food stamps, housing assistance, and health benefits? It's a great question. A lot of folks on the UVA supply chain are earning about $15 an hour. If you're earning $15 an hour in Charlottesville or Albemarle County and a lot of Central Virginia,
you're not living in Charlottesville.
You're not living in Charlottesville, Albemarle County. You're living in the outer counties. And if you're making $15 an hour, driving from the outer counties like Buckingham to work a job at UVA, you're legitimately taking your wallet and taking out, what, a $50 bill every single week and just throwing it out the window? And gas and wear and tear on your car?
At least.
At least, right? Plus the opportunity cost of your time that prevents you from climbing the professional totem pole because you're spending your time in a vehicle driving to and from Buckingham instead of exploring job opportunities that are elsewhere out there.
Yeah.
Is the true commitment from the University of Virginia supporting small business, minority-owned business, and women-owned business, is that the most authentic approach? Or is the more authentic approach from the University of Virginia, if it truly wanted to support small business, locally owned business, minority-owned business, woman-owned business, to pay the actual taxes on their real estate holdings? We'll get Alex Erpy on this very, very shortly. Hear me out, viewers and listeners. If the University of Virginia truly paid the full amount on its real estate holdings in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, Neil Williamson, you may be able to help me with this number. President of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson, I would love this number. Michael Payne has alluded to this.
You're talking about in taxes?
A pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes. Currently, the University of Virginia is the largest property owner in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Because much of this property is owned in its nonprofit vehicle, it does not have to pay taxes on this. It does not have to pay taxes on this. And as a result, localities like Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville have less revenue to run their jurisdictions. And because they have less revenue to run their jurisdictions, they have to find tax revenue somewhere.
Yeah.
How they're going to find that tax revenue? Business taxes.
Rooftop taxes.
Rooftop taxes, real estate, personal property taxes. So maybe if you want the most authentic approach to the University of Virginia supporting small businesses, minority-owned businesses, woman-owned businesses, is you keep the dollars in the pockets of the small business owners, the woman-owned business owners, and the minority-owned business owners who live in the community. And how do you keep the dollars in their pockets?
By shifting the tax burden to UVA.
Judah B. Wickower.
Ladies
and gentlemen.
But we touched on this subject off air recently, and you didn't like the idea.
Well, here's the problem with the idea. I don't think the University of Virginia is ever going to go for it. Because if the University of Virginia does this payment in lieu of tax program, it's in perpetuity. If the University of Virginia is truly taxed on its real estate holdings, this is going to happen every year for the history of the University of Virginia. The history of the University of Virginia. And it will happen for future purchases. And let's cut to the chase. UVA is not going to stop buying property because the school's expanding left and right. Look at what Ivy Road has happened. UVA is literally trying to build Academic Village 2.0 from the Boar's Head Resort all the way to the Ivy Square Shopping Center. If you watch closely, you see a sidewalk being built along Ivy Road. A sidewalk that eventually will connect old dorms. I was Dabney 101, the Dell, to the Boar's Head Resort. So folks can stay in the trophy property, Boar's Head Resort owned by the University of Virginia, and have a nice little stroll from their cottage, their villa, their hotel room, all the way down Ivy Road into grounds. That would be nice. And certainly a way to showcase their property. I guess what I'm saying is, and Alex, I'm curious of your take on this, if you can join us on set. Alex Erpy is back on the I Love CVille show after a brief 3-week, I believe, hiatus, and we love this man's big, beautiful brain. We've dubbed him the Antonio Banderas of finance as we welcome the triangle of content on screen. The viewers and listeners will just see our heads side by side on screen. The reality is we are an equilateral triangle sitting across from each other. If the University of Virginia was truly to pay taxes on all its property, this would last in perpetuity. Instead, it is utilizing mechanisms, strategies, PR vehicles like affordable housing, purchasing land north of town, purchasing land in the Fontaine area, and allocating it to affordable housing. Note that they're not selling the land, they're essentially leasing the land. Mm-hmm. It's also doing this commitment to supporting women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and small businesses. And I'm not throwing shade, I'm just dissecting this from every angle. First, welcome back to the set and to the show. We love having you. And then second, the show is yours. Any topic you want to go, any aspect of this topic you would like to pursue.
It's an interesting one because from the perspective of helping local small businesses, anything other than direct help to them is indirect. In other words, if paying workers more, obviously $1 more paid to a UVA worker is not instantly translating to $1 more spent at local small businesses. If the area is dominated by big chains, that money is still spent at big chains, right? However, that may have larger impacts. That may still be worth doing, but it's not quite the same, I think, as if your goal is to directly assist local small business. Then I think that Judah hit it on the corner in terms of the hit the nail on the head in terms of the corner, I should say. That really the only way to solve that issue it would be for UVA to own the property and then give the rent, put lower rents. As anything else, as you both were discussing, any reasonable landlord says, well, if they're subsidizing rent, I will just raise rent in perpetuity. And then you'd have the endless cycle of UVA, well, I'll do more subsidy, well, I'll just raise rent more. At some point, though, let's be real, though, at some point, it's kind of on the consumer as well to support local small business. In other words, yes, I get that UVA wants to support small women, minority-owned businesses, but at some point, a person needs to decide, I will forego spending my money at the Chipotle on the corner, and I will find a local small business to do it, to spend those funds with instead. Like at some point, and really, same thing goes for the landlords on the corner, right? At some point, you as a landlord have to say, either I want to make as much money as possible from this spot on the corner that I own, or I would rather lease it to a local business and made less profit. Because at that point, it's all rent. Right.
Amen.
Once you own a property, it's economic rent. It's the classic definition. Your profit is pretty much pure beyond maintenance of the building.
I know
Yeah.
Judah wants to jump in on this topic.
At some point, right, it's
I just
not
wanna say
necessarily
amen.
UVA's responsibility.
Judah's very passionate
What do you
about
think?
this topic. Offer us your take on this. You've stood by this statement many times on this program. You agree with what he says?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we are a capitalist nation. You can make as much money as you can possibly make before people stop buying or using your product, but is that what you want? Is that what we want? Do we all want to be like basically against each other, where we're all just struggling to make more than the other guy? That doesn't sound like the kind of place that I want to live in.
Yeah.
Fair comment. Okay, I'll play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Lisa Costello makes a very clear point. Lisa, you need a moniker. What area do you live so I can give you a moniker, please? She says, the city and the county lose tax revenue every single time a private owner sells to the University of Virginia, which is exempt from paying taxes to the city or the county. And then she says, I do not think they care if the corner is McDonald's and not local businesses. They are about the bottom line. Any changes that will come from pressure from the populace, any changes will come from the pressure of the populace and from the outside. That's what will drive the University of Virginia to change. And that is absolutely
That's
true.
That's
I would tend to
absolutely true.
agree.
Absolutely true. The University of Virginia is not going to do anything until it feels pressure from the populace. That is 100% true. There's two kinds of power. I had this conversation while playing a sport that I love, squash. The first kind of power is the power that comes from wealth, straight up money, dollar bills, y'all.
Yep.
The second kind of power is the power that comes when folks have the populace in their corner. And I will take the power that comes from the populace over the power of wealth any day of the week.
Yeah.
Because the power of wealth can be scaled, earned, and multiple folks can have it. The power of the populace is true power because few can accumulate that kind of backing.
Well, that's the issue, right? The issue is the power of the populace only works if it is concentrated.
populace is galvanized.
The population has to be concentrated, and each individual person needs to be willing to make the sacrifice. If the entire community said, we refuse to shop at any non-local business on the corner, everything changes in a day. But the issue is each individual person says, well, my purchase at the McDonald's on the corner really won't change anything, so I'll just go anyway. And once that happens, it all falls apart. The issue with the power of the populace is that if people don't actually all commit individually, then the whole agglomeration, people can all agree, but it falls apart very quickly. It's just very difficult to actually get everyone to commit because their own
Greed.
their own self-interest, and
Motivations.
Milton Friedman would call it greed. He had
Yeah.
the classic state that, he says when a corporation, right, raises prices, we call it greed. When I go to the store and find the cheapest brand and buy it, nobody calls me greedy, but I'm operating under the exact same principle. I want to spend as little of my own money as possible, right? So if I spend the $1 hamburger at McDonald's because it's better for me than spending the more expensive hamburger, I mean, it's not $1 anymore thanks to inflation, but the more expensive local hamburger, in the end, it's greed. Now, granted, not all greed is bad. In other words, if you don't have the funds, you don't have the funds, right? But it's the same principle at work. We just, in ourselves, we're much more likely to excuse it than in other people, basically.
Paul McCarter watching the program. He at one time owned Kid to Kid down Avon Extended. And he leaves this comment. Paul McCarter would make a great school board member. He leaves this comment. When I had my store, Kid to Kid, people would sit in the store and order off of Amazon just to save $1. They would price what was on the shelf and then order off of Amazon while sitting in the store. People say shop local, but they don't live by it.
Yeah, that is Very true.
That is very, very true.
I've
That's the Milton Friedman there.
That's the Milton Friedman, and I've said it many times before that Nicholas, my brother, and I have this conversation a lot, that capitalism is, like, I'm a believer in the free market, don't get me wrong, right? I think it's one of those things, it's like Winston Churchill said about democracy, it's the worst form of economy except for all the others that have been tried, right? But capitalism
Love
is
Alex.
a mirror.
Is it what?
Is a mirror. It does not have any values of its own. It shows you what you as a society value.
Okay, I'm with you.
And so people choose capitalism by all of us choosing, like Paul just said, by all of us choosing $1 cheaper rather than a local business. It's not capitalism's fault, it's ours. Capitalism is just showing us what we value. It is showing us that we value $1 saved here or there more than having a local business. That's really all it does. And it really is at some point up to us as the consumer to make that work, to decide what we value more.
Friend of the program, Jim Hingley watching. And Judah, you jump in with your thoughts. I'm going to relay what Jim Hingley just sent us via Twitter direct message. Love when Jim Hingley interacts with the program. He says, the property tax is a message he shared via DM on Twitter. Property tax arrangement between UVA and the city is unclear, unexamined. And then he shares a tweet, I believe, from Bill Chapman. Local governments always fund their operations by taxing real estate, and that is no different here in Charlottesville, where the city collects, and this was years back, this was 2012, an analysis from Bill Chapman. Bill Chapman is the owner of the Seaville Weekly. He owns a hotel on Jefferson Park Avenue. He's a real estate developer. Bill Chapman is a well-networked man. So this was about 10 years old. Still it applies to today. He says in a tweet, in an analysis, Chapman does, local governments almost always fund their operations by taxing real estate, and that is no different here in Charlottesville, where the city collects $50 million per year in property taxes. Some of the most valuable property, though, from a hospital complex to parking decks to an unused basketball arena, is exempt from the tax under state law because it belongs to the university. This house at 209 Sprigg Lane near the university is on a list of 4 properties for which the school pays service charges to the city. The adjacent house at 214 Sprigg Lane is also UVA owned, but is not on the list, so the city receives no payments. This dynamic has come under scrutiny in other college towns like Providence, Rhode Island. I believe that's the home to Brown. Is that not right? Providence, Rhode Island?
That's a good
I will
question.
check.
Judah, you check. I think that's Brown, Providence, Rhode Island. And he continues, where according to the Wall Street Journal, Mayor of Providence, is pressuring Brown University to increase voluntary payments in lieu of taxes on the $1 billion in property it owns. Currently, the school makes $4 million per year in tax payments. This was 2012 in Providence, Rhode Island. The mayor is threatening to take his case to the state legislature if the city's Ivy League tenant will not give in. Former Charlottesville, Jim Hingley, this is a great tweet. Then I want Judah to jump in. I got 4 more paragraphs to read, then Alex. Former Charlottesville city manager Maurice Jones, who is now the city manager in Chapel Hill. He was a one-time television sports broadcaster at NBC 29, worked at NBC 29 doing sports right before I started working there. Former Charlottesville city manager Maurice Jones, said in a written response, there has not been an agreement on direct voluntary payments for the exempt property, but there had been informal discussions about it in the past. Jones went on to say that while he certainly would entertain such an arrangement with UVA, he does not think the city's economic situation warrants it right now. This was 10 years ago. He continues with more intel on essentially UVA not paying the true taxes on its real estate holdings. Neil Williamson is sharing something. This anonymous Twitter account that has been interacting with us on social media is an extremely well-connected and individual. The account is anonymous. The handle is at ANONYMO 551202228. But everything whoever this person is sends during the show is like freaking on point and in the know on everything. This person says pilot payments. Harvard, $10 million to Cambridge, $10 $10 million to Boston, highlighting that this is happening elsewhere. Judah, jump in. Alex Erpy after that. Judah, what's on the medulla oblongata over there?
I'm just taking it all in. I mean, yeah, I get that big businesses want to keep their money, but at some point, it's UVA's. How much could UVA help the local economy if they were paying their fair share of taxes? How much of the burden would
would fall off the shoulders of small-owned businesses?
Yeah.
The small-owned
And
businesses
individuals.
live in the community. If they have to pay less taxes, they have more money to run their business.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's one of those things that maybe at the outset when a lot of these universities started was not an issue, right? But as they become bigger and bigger and consolidate more and more land in both the city and the county, right? You're sitting there with now the city and the county. In other words, the rest of the community now has to somehow come up with more and more tax money on fewer and fewer properties.
Yeah, less square feet.
On less square feet, which just at some point you sit there and say, at some point it will become untenable.
Right.
At some point there will be just not enough property left.
Yeah,
So either the property taxes will go up to extreme levels, meaning the only people that will afford to have them will be other extremely wealthy people, or else the city and the county, which they're already doing, are going to be looking at other ways to tax the community.
There you go. You see how this is so interconnected, and this is literally why I want to get engaged from a leadership standpoint with a local municipality. Lisa Costello says she lives on Cherry Avenue. Lisa, from here on out, you will forever be known as the Queen of Cherry. The Queen of Cherry. Katie Pearl is watching KTP. She says, gentlemen, I prefer the term thrifty. She is thrifty. I love that, KTP, and I love when you watch
she's
the
exactly
program.
right. I can sympathize with that.
The king of content, Neil Williamson. For what it's worth, Charlottesville and Albemarle work on 20-year plans. UVA has a 200-year plan.
And you're not in it.
Think about that. A 200-year plan.
Remember, an endowment, which is what a lot of these universities, they operate under kind of an endowment mindset.
Will you
right?
Google, hold that thought, will you Google how much is in the UVA endowment? How much money is in the endowment? Go ahead, Antonio
An
Banderas
endowment
of Finance.
mindset is an investment in perpetuity. In other words, you don't look at 5-year, 10-year, 20-year investment return goals, because your investments are in perpetuity. You will never be taxed on them. And don't forget, an endowment does not have a required spend. Like, in other words, if you, Jerry, said, I'm going to stick all my money in a private foundation to try to shield it from taxes, right? You've got to spend some money out of that private foundation. You're required to spend it. There's different ways to calculate, but you're required. An endowment does not. An endowment has literally, and exactly what it is, UVA has an in perpetuity mindset, right? The city and the county cannot operate that way, because at some point before perpetuity, at some point before infinity, they will simply run out of land that they're eligible to tax, and will have to come up with tax money in another way.
Alex Erpy dropping knowledge on the I Love Seaville show right here. Judah Whitcower, you got that endowment number for us.
Yeah, it looks like last year it was at 14.5 billion. I'm looking at something from Pensions and Investments, Pi Online. This is more recent from mid-September of this year. UVA endowment investment drops 4.7%. University of Virginia Investment Management Co.'s pool of $13.6 billion in endowment assets and other long-term funds posted a gross return of minus 4.7% for the fiscal year ended June 30th.
Oh, so that's the endowment plus others at UVIMCO?
What are your thoughts on this? Jump in here anywhere you want to go, Alex Erpy.
Oh no, that's probably the endowment plus other things managed by UVIMCO. But it's interesting. I wanted to circle back to something Judah said. He mentioned the big business mentality, right? And in reality, the reason, of course, we have this issue is because technically it's not a big business on the letter of the law. It's a nonprofit. At what point do people stop seeing it that way?
Exactly.
And say, well, wait a second, if you're operating like a big business, do we need to treat you like that? And the issue is whether UVA wants it or not, at some point the issues will just come. I mean, they can be doing all the right things, right? But at some point their hearts can be in the right place and all so forth, right? But at some point people may just see, the community may just cease looking at it. I think it's somewhat happening already. May just cease to look at them as a local nonprofit.
The anonymous Twitter account is still interacting with us on the
sure.
show. What I love about doing this is we get so much intel from DL sources that are in the news. I respect anonymity, and that's why we get the information. But this account is legitimately as DL as it gets. Uvemco aims for 3% to 5% spend per year.
So they have an aim, despite, but
3%
they're not
to
required.
5%.
They're not required to have one. Is the thing though with an endowment?
Yeah.
They can aim for it, but I don't think it's required. From my knowledge of finance, I don't think it's required from an endowment.
So we have, I love this. Neil Williamson, I believe UVA Foundation property pays local property taxes. I would love to check on that, Neil. I would love to check on that. You may be right on the foundation here. I would love to get some information. Anonymous Twitter handle that's sending us knowledge bombs. Can you confirm what Neil Williamson, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, just said? Anonymous Twitter account. This is what he said. I believe the UVA Foundation property pays local property taxes. Can you confirm that? Anonymous Twitter account. I wonder who this anonymous Twitter account is. I'm dying to know right here.
It's like the rectangle of content here, though. It's like there's the three of us, or I should say the quadrilateral of content.
Yeah, I know.
The three of us and then the viewers.
The anonymous Twitter account
Anonymous
that's
Twitter
been
account.
interacting with us on the show is like our deep throat.
Yeah.
You know? That's our deep throat over there. Keep it coming, anonymous Twitter account. So here's essentially the anonymous Twitter account just said Neil is correct. Anonymous Twitter account just said Neil is correct. Neil, I'm responding to your comment by saying this. Anonymous Twitter account said you are correct. So here's the question. Here's the gist of the show. Here's why this is such a good topic. Okay? Look, it's crystal clear that the University of Virginia is the engine that drives Central Virginia's economy. We know that. They're creating jobs. They're the number one employer.
Absolutely.
People come here to watch games, to reminisce, to wax nostalgic of their four best years of their
And
life.
let's be real. Charlottesville is a destination with the wealth that we have in our community because the university is
100%.
here. It's not because it's some random location in Virginia that somehow everyone wants to live there.
Exactly right. And I'm not throwing shade. Travis Hackworth is watching. We've dubbed him the King of Danville. I love Danville. I love the comeback city. I love everything that Danville, Virginia is doing. But if the University of Virginia was not in Charlottesville, Charlottesville and Albemarle County would be more like Danville than what they are now, Charlottesville and Albemarle County. I'm not throwing shade at the comeback city. I love Danville, Travis. We undoubtedly have insulation from macro recessionary trends in Charlottesville and Albemarle.
Yep.
We have boku.
It's buku. I don't know if
What's
it's an
that?
actual
Buku,
word.
a lot of wealth. Buku.
Oh, okay.
We have buku wealth. How about buku big ballers? I like the alliteration.
Okay, there you go.
Buku big ballers in this area because of the university. We will have more buku big ballers in this area because of the university. But here's the essence of what we're talking. Is the University of Virginia, with this commitment to small business, locally owned business, woman-owned business, and black-owned business, is this PR pomp and circumstance similar to this affordable housing initiative where it's buying land north of town, it's buying land in Fontaine, and then it's going to create some affordable housing. It's going to continue to own the land.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to own the land. It ain't selling the land to the people who are living in the affordable housing here. It's going to continue owning the land here. It's important to emphasize. Is this PR? Is this pomp and circumstance? Is it a dog and pony show? Or is it actually what small business needs to be supported and championed?
I mean, I don't mean to cop out and say both, but it can be both. In other words, let's be real. Like any institution, everything UVA does, I'm sure, has a PR angle to it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, their PR people will put a PR angle to it, right? At the same time, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I would much prefer that UVA with its own funds, in other words, if UVA is going to be doing procurement, I would much prefer they are doing procurement from local businesses than from bid change. In other words, there are things, even if we sit here and say that the big elephant in the room is the property tax, which at some point, as the university grows at rates that we probably have not seen and that were probably not envisioned even in the 19th century when they started it, right? The idea that the university would own this much of a chunk of land, right? Even as we face the elephant in the room, that doesn't mean that the university can't do good things in the meantime, right? While we're talking about these other issues, to at least support local businesses, minority-owned businesses more than it has done in the past and more than it could otherwise do. In other words, many universities, I'm sure around this country, just say, all right, who's the cheapest bid? Oh, it's a bid chain. No problem, I'm going to save some money here. So the fact that they're making a commitment to do more business with local businesses, I'm not going to sit here and say that's not a plus because there's a bigger issue out there, right? We can celebrate, I think, the small wins, right? The good things that are done, even as we sit there and say at some point we're going to have to deal with the bigger issue.
Kevin Yancey says it's lipstick on a pig. Kevin Yancey just cuts straight to it. It's lipstick on a pig.
The pig is uglier without the lipstick.
The pig is uglier without the lipstick, undoubtedly. It's very well said, Antonio Banderas of Finance. Janice Boyce Trevelyan, JBT. I get the tax exemption issue, fellas, but the college does bring in so much with students eating and living in UVA and Charlottesville area. It's crucial to our economy, no doubt.
Oh.
We're 100% agreeing with you. Agreed, responding to that comment right there, no doubt about it. Jim Hingley has shared another tweet here, which I will get to in a matter of moments. We have a lot of topic material coming. This is from Jim Hingley. And he's confirming what Anonymous55, Anonymous's Twitter account. I love that. Our deep throat is fantastic. Hingley confirms, he says, the analysis does not include property owned by the UVA Foundation, the nonprofit real estate arm of the university, which is not governed by the state exemption law and pays taxes on its many holdings, including the Boar's Head. That's from the article from Bill Chapman. Bill Chapman, you're getting some props today. I'm going to tag, in fact, Bill Chapman on the feed right here. He's the co-owner of the Seville Weekly. He owns the hotel on Jefferson Park Avenue. What is that?
The one on the...
Is it not Oakhurst?
Oakhurst Inn? Is that the one
He
close
owns
to
that.
the university? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he owns that. He owns
Nice little
real
spot.
estate around the Oakhurst Inn. He owns the Seville Weekly. He has a couple of other holdings. I would say you're kind of a hotel magnate. A hotelier, if you may, Bill Chapman. You are getting props today. I just tagged him on the feed here. What's on the brain over there? I see the wheels turning.
Just taking it all in, agreeing with the both sentiment rather than neither. Yes, it can be lipstick on a pig, but that doesn't mean that they won't still do. They still won't help some some local and woman-owned and minority-owned businesses. It'd be nice to see them do more, but yes, that doesn't mean that we call them out for every little thing.
Yeah.
This could be a good thing. It could also be just a PR stunt, but that doesn't mean they won't help some local businesses.
There you go. Yep. And you know what it truly is? Fantastic fodder for a talk show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic
Absolutely.
fodder for a talk show. This is what I want to get what's coming up with today, Manana. I want to ask this question because it's really resonating with the viewers and listeners. Should the university make the push to purchase the UVA corner, or is that unfair and unrealistic to ask the university to make this push and purchase? And then the follow-up question to this is, if the university makes the push to buy the UVA corner, is the commitment to keep it as shops and retail, entertainment, dining district, or is the fear, if it does purchase the UVA corner, like we likely will see with the Ivy Square Shopping Center, that it's going to evolve into essentially educational infrastructure, for lack of a better phrase, classrooms. I'm not even sure classrooms are applicable in the future anymore, but I would say maybe educational infrastructure is applicable.
That's tough. I mean, there's so much benefit. Even a UVA, if UVA owned the corner, I think even they would concede there is a financial benefit to them from maintaining it exactly what it is today as a shopping area. They can find other places. I think they would find other places
For educational
infrastructure.
Yeah, I would hope.
I would suspect they have both a financial and a community incentive to do that. I mean, the issue with them, I think that's a tough ask to put on them. A, because it takes two to tango, right? In other words, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. There could be a very big incentive from current owners there to say, well, why on earth would I sell? I have basically an income stream in perpetuity, which may be worth more than anything you could offer me as a lump sum.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's one of the things, and I've talked about this with my wife, I talk about this with some of our friends, I talk about this with my CPA, and the question often arises, why don't you sell some of this real estate that you have? And I'm a holder. It's like, goes up 4% every year. This is where I get some beef from Judah over here on the 4% increase every year. It goes up 4% every year.
I've never given you beef.
I'd like, no beef?
I've never given you any grief.
Give me a little beef.
Not really. I think maybe more in the abstract, never personally, never like here. I mean, sometimes I've brought up some questions on the show, but I don't think I've ever directed them specifically at you.
Okay,
I
that's
speak
fair.
more
It's more
to-
to the bigger landlord.
Yeah, it's more to the bigger picture. I mean, I know you're not out trying to gouge people, but
Thank you.
I think that they're, some of the responses I've heard from people on our shows have just given me pause about what it is we're talking about as we discuss housing affordability in almost the same breath that we discuss how much rent prices are going up and how gentrified our neighborhoods are going to become. And I'm like, okay, but there's still responsibility there, and there's still, like we've been talking about today, there is a choice. You can make as much as you can possibly make, and that's one of the choices.
Or you could shear the sheep, make a few sweaters every day, and continue to make sweaters for a lifetime. And how we like to run and do our business, and why we don't lose clients with our B2B business, and why we rarely lose clients with our rental business, is because we make a few sweaters every day.
Yeah.
We don't choose to make as many sweaters to warm the country. We make a few sweaters to warm Charlottesville, for lack of better metaphor here. Okay, it's about incremental, moderate increases. And an incremental, moderate increase is digestible by your clients and tenants. Heck, sometimes we don't even raise the rates on our clients. And we do volume, okay? So I want to get Alex Erpy in here. We got about 4 minutes before our traditional 1:45 conference call, and I want to hear what's going on with Today y Mañana. Maybe a take on the market, anywhere you want to go. In fact, you have carte blanche of whatever you want to cover on the show here. And in regards to the real estate holdings we have, as I've become a father, I've been more motivated to figure out a way to pass them on to our son, and to our son that's due come Thanksgiving. That's been my motivation here. Yeah. Show is yours anywhere you want to go.
And that's what a lot of the people on the corner, the owners of the corner, are sitting there saying. Like, in other words, you have land, you don't easily give up land.
Right.
All right.
God's not making any more land.
Yeah, land for cash, in the long term, I think land is more solid even than cash. No one knows what the U.S. dollar is going to be worth 100 years from now, but you know for certain that what land is going to be worth.
That's a great comment.
Unless somehow we're living in space, but I doubt that's happening. But I think that's, and then you have the issue, which UVA may not even want to go down that road of, now every time they decide who's on the corner, who's not, oh, why did UVA pick them?
Oh,
why didn't they pick me? Because if rents are no longer market rate, now the question is who's picking and choosing based on, oh, did he know someone? Did this person get a benefit? How come I wasn't? And they may not even want that PR headache. Better just to say, well, we don't own the corner. It's not on me. I wash my hands of that issue.
Pika, that's a fantastic point. And that's a point that I should have brought to viewers and listeners' ears and eyeballs at the beginning of the show. If the University of Virginia becomes the owner of the corner, then they essentially become the kid on the school ground that has to pick the kickball team and has to choose between which friend gets first pick.
Yeah.
And that's a tough spot to be.
But didn't you say they already bought up shopping center property?
They bought Ivy Square Shopping Center, but with Ivy Square Shopping Center,
just gonna tear it all down.
It's going to become educational infrastructure. So when a lot of those leases get expire, it becomes educational infrastructure.
Yeah.
So they don't have that first
issue
pick,
right
second pick conundrum.
Yeah.
Show is yours, Alex Erpy.
Just a little heads up, we're going to have, speaking of small business, I mean, one of the things that we always try to push on Today Mañana is exactly what we're talking about today. Like, you need to support small businesses, and we try as hard as possible to make sure people know just how many are out there. If you haven't heard of them, they're here, they're in the community. I know it's not as easy, because when you type in, I need XYZ on Google, the first thing you're going to get is Amazon. Right? You're not going to get your local small business because Amazon pays to be number one on Google, right? But we try to make sure that people know what's out there. So we got three different, two small businesses and then a returning guest. We're going to have on Trisha Doodle. She's from Phase 28 and Baby Bridge. We're going to have on, Trisha Pape. So we have two Trishas, spelled differently. Trisha Pape, who's the owner of Central Virginia Canine Academy. And then we're going to have back on Pastor David Ford. He came on last year because he was talking about an artist who had been to Cuba. Because, Cuba obviously very near and dear to the hearts of
You guys are
Xavier.
Cubanos.
We are Cubanos, right? My dad was
Yo
born in
también.
Havana. And you as well, of course. And so he's returning from a trip that he just made to Cuba. So he's going to talk to us about what he saw, some of the things that are happening, just what the experience was like. So two local small businesses that we really want to highlight, and then a returning guest about a Latino-related topic that's been always near and dear to our heart on Today Mañana.
Our conference call in 30 seconds. I'm going to start ringing the phone number literally as the show is on air. Before we do, expectation of a rate hike this month.
Oh, probably.
We have the Queen of Whitehall, KTP, Katie Pearl, asking that question.
I think it's
Three-quarters of a point?
I think so.
You say 3/4 of a point?
I don't see any indication that they're going to do less. I mean,
Right.
especially with GDP having a little bit of a bump, they might say, well, we got a little more runway here. Let's go for it. I'd be surprised if not. I mean, they have surprised before, but I suspect 3/4 of a point.
Yeah, same. This month, 3/4 of a point. He is phenomenal. He is the Antonio Banderas of finance. His name is Alex Erpy, the co-host of Today y Mañana, airs Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. right here on this network. His show presented by Emergent Financial Services. Judah Whitcower is on point. For Judah and Alex, my name is Jerry Miller. We hope you enjoyed the I Love CVille show. I'm calling my 145 literally right now. Take care.
I love how we do that. We just so seamless right into the 145 conference call. That was a fun one. That was a blast. Thank you guys.
So many layers.
That was a great topic. Great thoughts, Judah.